93, 93, 93. This is Aman Asha Renew from AshaRenew.com. Today I will speak on chaos theory and why magic is real. So previously I spoke on chaos magic in the 20th century and the importance of updating your magical systems to fit within the dynamics of the 21st century. So in this particular segment, I will speak on chaos theory as a whole and how this is applied to magic, making it what we call real within the construct of Maya. When it comes to chaos theory, the reason chaos is a theory in the first place is because not quantum, but yes, quantum mechanics and quantum physics, but essentially chaos is a force that cannot be replicated or duplicated over and over again. The example would be if you could control chaos and you shoot chaos like an energy ball, right? Every time you shoot that energy ball, it will create a different reaction. There is no way to essentially get the same result every time from what we call the force of chaos. So, on the surface, chaos appears to be unorderly or it has no order, which is why we call it chaos. Chaos could essentially mean without order. So, on the surface, chaos is without order. However, as we study quantum mechanics and as we study quantum physics, we see even amongst the chaos, we see that there is an order, even though it appears to be chaotic and producing different results externally. The internal mechanisms are nonetheless the same. And this is what we call chaos theory, which essentially is establishing the principles of chaos or the consistency or the consistent principles of chaos, because there is a order to the chaos. So essentially, when we study this theory, and of course I will be coming from my own perspective, this isn't anyone else. When I view chaos in the sense of how it applies to magic and the importance of applying chaos to magic, because we essentially try to learn magic like essentially we learn in school, right? Basically through education. We're trying to educate ourselves on, you can say, secrets of the universe, when essentially the nature of the secret doesn't allow us to study it like we study a book. For example, the true secret can never be documented. What do I mean? Even if you are documenting, let's just say your magical ritual, so even if you are actually documenting, to actually capture the essence of magic, you're not able to document that. You're not able to essentially document the essence of magic because it is not just objective, it is also subjective. So there's no way to document the subjective experience other than you actually recording what's going on at the time, but even that is subjective. Somebody from the objective plane would still have to read that from an objective point of view because it is not happening to them. So they're reading about an experience happening to someone else. So for example, if someone was to read your magical diaries or your magical journals, they will still be essentially reading about what is occurring subjectively to you from an objective experience or point of view because it is not happening to them. So even if they were to try to replicate everything that you did in accordance to what you documented, they are not guaranteed to get the same result because that is the principle of chaos. The principle of chaos is why we have so much variation in life. So if we truly want to understand chaos, we have to see chaos as producing the variety of life. So when they say no two snowflakes are the same, no two people are the same, what produces all this variation is essentially chaos, right? So that's why you can have the same mother and the same father, but they can produce all types of different children. None of the children would essentially look the same. Even if they were twins, they would not have the same nature, even if they were identical in genetics. This is essentially because of what we call chaos theory. Now, of course, we have the scientific ways to explain these things, but beyond what we see, because that will be the results, right? Because essentially, if we are studying the results of a thing, we're not really studying the cause, because the cause is intangible, meaning it is not physical. Like chaos isn't necessarily physical, but it has a physical manifestation. So, for example, you can say a situation that is discord, right? A situation that is all in discord, you can say chaotic, a chaotic situation, a chaotic person. When we speak about these things, we're speaking about disorganization. So we are speaking about a chaotic person. We're talking about a disorganized person. If we're talking about a chaotic situation, we're talking about a disorganized situation, right? However, that is just one angle of the chaos, because the chaos is actually producing an order. So even though we see with our eyes disorder, there is still order to the disorder. Essentially, this is why toxins can be used as medicine. We can turn venom into medicine. We can turn something that would initially kill you to something that actually heals you. That will be another example of chaos. But we are manipulating the chaos to produce a different result than it usually would produce. So, for example, what we call chaos or disorganization is really the organization of something else if we look at the opposite. So, what do I mean? What appears to be disorganized on the surface is actually organized beneath the surface. So if we take something as, let's just say, a saying people say, God works in mysterious ways. That's a saying that we've all heard before. That's basically saying God works within the realms of chaos. So what they refer to as mystery just says they don't have the words to explain the movements of God. So we just say mysterious ways, or we just give it up to God because we can't explain these things. The reason why these things cannot be explained is because they are based upon the chaos principle. And the chaos principle is not necessarily consistent. So you cannot observe it, let's just say in a laboratory, you cannot observe this phenomenon and it continuously produces the same result. It's going to continuously produce a different result. And because it continuously produces a different result, you can't really get, you can say, a foundation or a grounding of information that is consistent. And because it is no consistent information, it has to be labeled a theory. So anything that is labeled a theory is because the information does not produce enough consistent results to make it a fact. So essentially the difference between fact and theory is still based in chaos. There are still principles and elements in which they do not understand to make it factual. Now this goes into what we call as magic, because magic is based upon these same principles, right? So you can say magic is not necessarily a fact in the sense of you can duplicate or produce consistent results through any type of people. It don't matter if this person, comes from this side of the world or that side of the world, you're going to produce a consistent result. That's not necessarily how magic works, right? You're going to have a different result. So because we will have a different result, depending on who the conductor is, because this is the key to magic. Magic is dependent upon the conductor or the being itself. And that's why in the previous video I was speaking of, you don't need any tools when it comes to magic, because all magic comes from the Kundalini force itself, the prana itself, the chi itself, the energy itself. So we are living conductors. We conduct energy just being alive. So just the fact that we are living, the fact that we can absorb prana from out the atmosphere means that we are conducting this prana within us, which produces our body heat, and while we feel warmth within, so on and so forth. All this is a result of the conductor that we are. We are conducting, or moving around and manipulating the prana that is within us, right? This is well known in the East, but we still don't acknowledge it in the West because it is the chaos principle. This is why we have differences between the East and the West, because it is based upon chaos. So that's why in the East they can call it chi, they can call it qigong, right? They can call it prana, they can call it kundalini. Then when we come over here to the West, the only thing we have to match that is energy. We just call it energy here. But there is really no science or consistency to energy. And what I mean by this is, if you ask 10 different people what energy is, you're going to get 10 different answers, because it is not a consistent study. There's no school you can go to in the West to study energy. You get what I'm saying? There's no school of energy, the study of energy. There's no school that specifically just studies energy. But if you go to the East, they do have schools of Kundalini. They have schools of Tantra, right? They have schools of Qigong, because they actually understand the chaos principle. But we see it is not a collective understanding, it is a subjective understanding, right? They understand it subjectively. However, if we try to understand what they understand subjectively, we will be trying to understand it from an objective perspective. And because we're trying to study something subjective from the objective perspective, it is not a consistency. Depending on who's looking at it, they will see a different thing and a different result will be produced, right? So this is essentially the chaos principle, and this is what magic is based on. That's why we have so many different types of magical traditions. The purpose of having so many different magical traditions is because magic can be customized, right? What I mean by magic can be customized is, in the 21st century, we can take many different elements from many different places in the world and create our own magical system of factors that work together. So you may take a little, mantra from Hinduism, right? You may take some, yogic postures, from the school of yoga. You may take, some Kundalini practices. You may take bits and pieces from everywhere to combine something that isn't anywhere else. Like, there wouldn't be anywhere else that combines essentially the system that you combine. It would be different than anyone else's system. 'Cause essentially, everyone will have a magical system that is personalized to them, that has made something objective subjective. So let me put that in a different way. So the same way we have people that understand Kundalini subjectively or prana subjectively, the only way for us to understand these things subjectively is by piecing elements together from different systems. So essentially, it would do us no good to specifically study Kundalini. We have to study Kundalini, and we have to also study prana. We have to also study chi. We have to also study qigong. Because when we study all four of these, we can take the elements that actually resonate with us. Take 2 or 3 pieces from here, 2 or 3 pieces from here, 4 or 5 elements from there. So when you have a complete system, it is a combination of many systems, but that combination of many systems allows you to understand what they already understand, right? So we have to do it in a composite way. And this is essentially what alchemy is. Alchemy is the ability to take many different things from many different places to come to the same conclusion they did, just in a different path. Because again, we did not grow up in these systems. We did not grow up in these traditions. We are coming into the knowledge of all these systems and traditions in the 21st century. We're just now learning what the ancients already knew. But we cannot take the same path that the ancients took, because we are in different environments and different circumstances. So we must take bits and pieces from all of the ancestors collectively. And that's essentially what becomes the universal spiritual system. The universal spiritual system is the principle of chaos. To understand chaos, to understand that you may have 10 people in a room, they're all chaos musicians, or they have their own magical systems, but they have came to the same conclusions, just taking different pathways. They come to the same conclusion, the principle of magic, right? So they all understand magic, but they all understand it differently. So they understand magic in 10 different ways. However, the common denominator is magic itself or chaos itself. So they all can say they understand magic, they all can say they understand chaos, but how they arrived at those conclusions are completely different, are completely unique, are completely personal, are completely subjective. So they came to an objective truth from a subjective magical system that has been personalized or customized according to what they naturally resonate with. So they have created or customized a personalized magical system by combining all different elements from all different spiritual systems and magical systems from around the world so that they can arrive at the same conclusion that the ancients arrived at. So essentially, this is our task in the 21st century, is to combine, is to study all things and to create a personalized or customized magical systems after studying all these things, because the more we study, the more tools we have access to, right, to ultimately, again, arrive at this objective universal truth. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll get back to y'all a little bit later. Peace. 93.